Section 11.1, defining minor scales. We're going to do a bit of orientation here. We're going to briefly recall what a major scale is. A major scale, as you remember, it has 8 notes, it spans an octave, it contains one of each musical letter, except for that beginning and ending letter, which appears twice, and, really importantly, it has this pattern of half steps and whole steps in between consecutive notes of the scale. That good old whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. So here we see an example of a D major scale. It satisfies all of those conditions. We have our 8 notes, it spans an octave, etc. And we have that pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So that's old news. That's the major scale. Now, let's learn about the minor scale. The minor scale satisfies many of the same conditions. It also has 8 notes, it also spans an octave, it also has one of each musical letter, except for that beginning and ending letter, which appears twice. But it has a different pattern of half steps and whole steps, and this is exactly what causes it to sound different from the major scale. So its pattern is whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, and you'll just want to memorize that quickly. So whole, half, whole, half, whole. So here's an example. Let's say we wanted to write a minor scale beginning on the note G. Well, as you see, we've written out each note along the way. We've written out a G, an A, a B, a C, etc. And what I've written in below, that whole, half, whole, half, whole, that might force us to alter the notes slightly. So as it turns out, to satisfy the half step and whole step pattern, we end up needing a flat in front of the B, so it becomes a B flat, and we also need this flat in front of the E. So that gives us a bona fide G minor scale. And just a note, even though you can probably guess that eventually we're going to be using key signatures, for right now we're just using accidentals in front of individual notes. This is so that we can internalize that whole, half, whole, half, whole pattern and get some practice writing scales that way. So let's do perhaps all 3 of these. You can pause the video and work these out on your own if you feel confident enough to just work these out on without additional help. So, but that being said, I'll walk you through all 3 of these. So let's do a D minor scale, and we're going to construct it exactly the same way as that G minor scale was constructed above. So let's pick a D. Let's take that one. And let's write out our total of 8 notes on the staff. And now, here's where we want to plug in the half step and whole step pattern. So whole, half, whole, half, whole. Another way you can think of it, by the way, is that all of these steps are whole steps, except for between the 2nd and 3rd notes and between the 5th and 6th notes. So when we try to match the half step and whole step pattern that we want with the notes, we might need to make an alteration or 2. So D to E, does that give us a whole step? Yep. Does E to F give us a half step? Yep. F to G, does that give us a whole step? Yes, it does. G to A gives us a whole step? Yep. Does A to B give us a half step? No. So we need to turn this B into a B flat, and now we're in business. Does B flat to C, does that give us a whole step? Yep. And C to D, is that a whole step? Yes. So all we needed, as it turns out in that scale, was that one pesky B flat, and then we were good to go. Let's go into the next one. This is a C minor scale in bass clef. So we'll pick a C, construct our scale like so. Just make sure that you've got the right number of notes, you're not skipping anything or duplicating anything along the way. And now we'll plug in that pattern, whole, half, whole, half, whole. So let's check it out. C to D, is that a whole step? Yep. D to E, is that a half step? No, we need to flat that E. E flat to F, is that a whole step? Yep. F to G, is that a whole step? Yep. G to A, is that a half step? No, we're going to need to flat that A. So it becomes an A flat. A flat to B, is that a whole step? No, that's actually too big. Put a flat there, we're okay. And B flat to C, does that give us a whole step? Yes, it does. So in this case, we needed 3 flats. One on the E, one on the A, and one on the B. Last one of this set, B minor. And let's pick, let's pick the low B here. And we will construct our scale like so. Good old pattern below, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. And let's go to work figuring out exactly what notes we want. So B to C, does that give us a whole step? No, of course not. Those are consecutive white notes. So we're going to need a sharp in this case. So we now have a whole step. From C sharp to D, is that a half step? Yep. D to E, is that a whole step? Yep. E to F, is that a whole step? No, we need this F to be an F sharp. F sharp to G, is that a half step? Yep. G to A, is that a whole step? Yes. And A to B, is that a whole step? Yes, it is. So we're all set. We, as it turns out, just needed that C sharp and that F sharp, and we were good to go. And we'll go on to the next section in the next video.